Snyder County Prison female corrections officer accused of sexually inappropriate behavior with a male inmate.
When you pack murderers, predators, and psychopaths into one place, violence is inevitable, and prison guards are often caught in the middle.
Inside Harris County's Joint Processing Center captures a clash between a jail guard and an inmate.
One officer was dragged into a bathroom by an inmate, no backup in sight. Another left her shift with a broken nose, deep cuts, and bruises so severe she needed urgent medical care. Female guards face even worse dangers, some beyond physical violence. Join us as we unveil the tragic fate of female cops in male prisons. A brutal day at Rikers Island. At Rikers Island, a day that began like any other quickly spiraled into chaos. Captain Elizabeth Sturdivant, a dedicated officer with years of service, was carrying out her routine duties when an inmate suddenly overstepped all boundaries.
Inmates are assaulting us with impunity, and there are no consequences or deterrents in place.
While she was addressing an infraction during a dispute between inmates, one particular offender, known for his unpredictable behavior, launched an unprovoked attack. In a matter of seconds, Sturdivant was caught off guard by a series of heavy punches that left her with a large bruise on her forehead and two painful black eyes. She immediately attempted to defuse the situation with pepper spray, a tool meant to protect, but it proved ineffective against the inmate's relentless assault.
It was dangerous for everyone who was in there, for the medical staff, for the correctional officers, and for the people who were incarcerated there.
This incident is set against the backdrop of Rikers Island's long history of turbulent conditions. Overcrowded cells, understaffed shifts, and mounting pressure on correctional officers create an environment where even routine tasks become dangerous.
What do you see in these pictures?
I see myself. I see everything that I experienced while I was at Rikers Island.
Fellow officers rushed in, halting the attack and providing urgent care. The event has stirred debate among staff, who now question whether current safety protocols truly protect them. Some worry that policies limiting physical defense measures might inadvertently expose officers to harm, forcing them to work in an increasingly volatile atmosphere. A night of chaos at Sierra Conservation Center. It was a night that left many reeling at the Sierra Conservation Center in Jamestown. On January 20th, 2024, an unsettling incident unfolded when an inmate, known to have a violent past, managed to slip into a control booth by pretending to be someone he wasn't. Imagine the shock when a female correctional officer, doing her routine duties, suddenly found herself in a perilous situation. The inmate, whose criminal record painted him as a dangerous man, took advantage of the situation to force his way into power.
It's a horrific attack. A female correctional officer was battered and held hostage for hours.
For hours, from just after 9 p.m. into the early hours of Sunday morning, he held the officer in a situation that no one could have predicted. The control booth, positioned high above the ground, had become a place of isolation where the officer's calls for help went unheard. The inmate's actions weren't just about physical violence. There were disturbing indications of sexual assault that added to the horror of the night. Staff later described how the entire facility was left scrambling, with a palpable sense of fear taking hold.
He was able to allegedly hold her hostage for a period of 4 to 5 hours, something like this.
Colleagues and other officers voiced growing concerns about the safety protocols in place. With the inmate in control of such a critical area, the whole building felt vulnerable, and many began questioning whether current policies were keeping everyone as safe as they should be. This distressing event wasn't just an isolated lapse in security. It resonated deeply among the staff, many of whom now wonder about the future of safety in such environments. An hour in a vulnerable cell block. Imagine starting your shift knowing you're the only guard in a cell block filled with 64 inmates. For one prison guard at Elaine Hunt Correctional Center, that was exactly her reality on that fateful morning.
Head warden at Elaine Hunt Correctional Center has been placed on leave.
With no backup in sight, she was left alone in an area where every corner held uncertainty. Surveillance later revealed an unsettling scene. The guard was dragged into a bathroom by one of the inmates. For about 20 long minutes, the incident unfolded away from the eyes of her co-workers, leaving behind questions and a sense of deep betrayal. In the chaos that followed, allegations emerged that the guard was assaulted during this time. The details remain murky, and while she claims the assault was rape,
this person had to call their own unit that they originated from saying, "I'm desperate here, I'm watching an assault."
the evidence found by a grand jury was not enough to press charges against the inmate involved. Instead, the tables turned in a way that has left many in disbelief. Soon after, a separate allegation surfaced involving another officer, leading to charges of misconduct. It wasn't long before the focus shifted to how a facility, supposedly secure and well-managed, could allow such a lapse in safety. This incident has stirred up heated conversations about staffing and safety protocols. The department responsible for the facility has long struggled with low staffing levels, a problem compounded by low wages, irregular schedules, and even the pressures of a global pandemic. Despite assurances from officials that everything was in line with best practices, many staff members remain skeptical. They feel that having only one guard in a cell block full of potentially dangerous inmates is far from a safe or reasonable setup. A shocking assault.
When things took a violent turn for an Ingham County Sheriff's deputy who was hospitalized after an inmate attacked her.
In Ingham County, one morning turned into a nightmare for a young deputy with less than a year of experience under her belt. While performing what should have been a routine safety check on the jail's premises, she found herself suddenly under attack. According to reports from the sheriff's department, a male inmate, who was already known for his violent tendencies and was awaiting trial for murder, waited for the perfect moment to strike. The deputy was doing her usual rounds in a quiet section of the jail when the inmate ambushed her. With deliberate intent, he lunged at her, striking her hard in the head and face several times. The brutality of the assault left her with serious injuries that required immediate medical attention. Fortunately, her training and quick reflexes helped her call for backup before the situation could worsen. Fellow deputies rushed to her aid, and she was quickly taken to the hospital, where doctors worked to stabilize her condition.
The sheriff's department says a female deputy is lucky to be alive after being brutally attacked by an Ingham County inmate.
In the aftermath of the incident, but it proved ineffective against the inmate, the deputy was incredibly fortunate to have survived what could have been a fatal encounter. He explained that the inmate had planned the attack carefully, choosing that moment to catch her off guard.
He planned this. He ambushed her. He did this purposely against her.
This shocking incident has stirred a deep sense of concern not only within the jail, but also among the wider law enforcement community. It raises troubling questions about safety protocols and the measures in place to protect officers who are tasked with the challenging job of maintaining order. As the community reels from the news, details continue to emerge about what led to this brutal assault. The deputy is now recovering at home, and her return to duty remains uncertain. The incident has sparked heated discussions among law enforcement officials about staffing, training, and the overall security of correctional facilities. Many are left wondering if enough is being done to safeguard those who put their lives on the line every day. A savage assault in Marcy. At the Mid-State Correctional Facility in Marcy, New York, a routine interaction turned into a violent nightmare for Officer Andrea Adamczyk. Known for her calm professionalism and 5 years of service, Adamczyk was performing her daily duty when a seemingly ordinary request escalated into brutality. While asking an inmate to take a shower, a standard part of inmate management, she was unexpectedly attacked.
An inmate who assaulted a corrections officer at Mid-State Correctional in 2021 was sentenced to an additional 6 years in prison.
The inmate, whose erratic behavior had raised concerns among his peers, began striking her with savage force. Within minutes, he had inflicted a broken nose, deep cuts, and extensive bruising that demanded immediate medical attention and reconstructive surgery. With a palpable sense of fear, the scars of that day became a permanent reminder of the dangers lurking behind prison walls. The facility, already grappling with understaffing and heightened tension, witnessed a dramatic decline in morale following the attack. Many officers recalled long shifts, high stress, and the constant uncertainty of their own safety.
They are very unpredictable. With young adults, they act out and they attack each other.
Colleagues described Adamczyk as a hard-working, committed professional whose experience underscored a worrying trend. Assaults on correctional staff were growing more severe despite a shrinking inmate population. Administration officials scrambled to review protocols, but many officers felt the response was too little. Too late. Violence in a hospital room in Orlando. In July 2014, a scene at the Orlando Regional Medical Center shocked both corrections staff and hospital personnel alike. A seasoned female corrections officer, tasked with supervising a male inmate during his medical evaluation, found herself in a vulnerable position on the 9th floor. The inmate, who had been escorted to the hospital after complaining of a health issue, had a history of violent behavior that many believed was under control until that fateful afternoon. Alone in the patient room, the officer was suddenly overpowered. In a swift, uncontrolled outburst, the inmate used available objects as weapons, striking her repeatedly and leaving her with severe facial injuries that required emergency treatment.
And as a surprise to my staff, he turned and it became very violent very quickly.
Hospital security quickly intervened and police soon arrived on the scene. The chaotic moments that followed saw staff scrambling to secure the area and support the injured officer, whose dedication was evident despite the assault. The incident prompted immediate internal investigations by both the Corrections Department and hospital administrators. As officials worked to understand how the inmate, already partially restrained, managed such a brutal attack, new safety protocols were soon implemented. Changes included stricter supervision standards and revised guidelines for transporting inmates in hospital settings. In the aftermath, the hospital adapted its procedures. Meals for patients under legal custody shifted to safer formats, and the use of certain serving materials was discontinued to minimize risk. Terrifying encounter on Rikers Island. In February 2024, the notorious corridors of Rikers Island bore witness to another harrowing assault on a female correctional officer. On what should have been a routine shift, a 33-year-old officer found herself in a life-threatening confrontation with an inmate linked to a notorious gang.
Rikers Island correction officers being attacked.
The inmate, known for his imposing stature and unpredictable temper, suddenly charged, his aggression escalating into a near-choking incident. In the confined space of a cell block corridor, the officer struggled to free herself from his powerful grip. Despite her determined resistance and every ounce of strength, the overwhelming force of the attack left her with a broken nose, deep-seated bruises, and lingering physical pain. This incident, chilling in its brutality, deepened fears among the ranks of correctional staff. Colleagues described how the shock of the assault rippled through the community, intensifying long-standing concerns about safety measures and policies that many feel do not adequately empower officers to protect themselves. Beyond the physical injuries, the psychological toll was evident. The officer, a mother of 3, admitted to sleepless nights and a constant anxiety about returning to work, questioning whether her next shift might bring a repeat of the nightmare. In response, corrections unions and safety advocates rallied for urgent policy reforms, calling for a re-examination of the restrictions on self-defense measures and the role of solitary confinement as a deterrent for violent behavior. Attack at HMP Little Hay. It was a day that began like any other at HMP Little Hay in Cambridgeshire. A newly trained female prison officer was on her routine cell check when she unexpectedly found herself in grave danger. In a shocking turn of events, a 28-year-old inmate, already known for a violent past involving a conviction, overpowered her. He dragged her into his cell, holding her tightly and using items around him to block the door. The situation quickly escalated when he grabbed her by the throat. Guards eventually stormed in and discovered him.
One incident happened Wednesday when an inmate sucker punched an officer standing in the hallway.
Unashamedly shirtless, on top of her as the chaos unfolded. The officer, who had barely begun her career in corrections, was caught completely off guard. The assault was brutal enough that at some point, she lost consciousness. Her injuries were later treated on site for bruising, but the lasting emotional impact is something that words can hardly capture. In the aftermath, the inmate's previous sentence for rape was only worsened by additional time for his actions during this attack. The extra years added to his sentence underscored just how serious the incident was deemed by the courts. The gravity of the assault sent ripples through the institution and the wider correctional community, prompting serious discussions about safety and the vulnerabilities of new staff. Every day, officers put themselves at risk, and this incident starkly reminds us of the challenges they face behind those walls. Even as the dust settled on this disturbing event, questions about how such violence could be prevented continued to linger. Assault in Arizona's correctional facility. In April 2015, an incident at a state prison in Yuma left many reeling. A female corrections officer, during a scheduled meeting in an office, found herself the target of a violent attack by an inmate. What started as a routine meeting quickly turned into chaos when the inmate suddenly turned on her without warning. There were no weapons involved, just raw aggression that caught everyone off guard. The officer's call for help rang out, and colleagues nearby rushed to the scene. They managed to pull the inmate away and secure the area before the situation could worsen. Even with a swift response, the damage was done. The officer was quickly given first aid by on-site medical staff and was later taken to a hospital for further evaluation. Although she was released soon after, the physical and emotional toll of the incident was undeniable. The correctional authorities wasted no time launching an investigation. The focus was on getting to the bottom of the assault and ensuring that every detail was documented. Early reports suggested that the inmate's actions were severe enough to consider additional charges beyond the assault, touching on crimes like sexual assault and kidnapping. Such measures underscored the seriousness of the offense and the determination of prison officials to protect their staff. This attack not only shocked those at the facility, but also added to a growing list of incidents that highlight the dangerous environment within correctional institutions. The bravery of the officer, who endured the assault and cooperated with investigators, is a stark reminder of the risks faced by those who work behind prison walls. Chaos in a South Carolina prison. In November 2024, Lee Correctional Institution in South Carolina witnessed a day that quickly turned from routine to dangerous. A female corrections officer was suddenly caught in a violent attack while on duty. As the incident unfolded, a male colleague rushed to help her, only to find himself overwhelmed by a group of inmates.
Then he punches a corrections officer.
What began as an effort to provide support turned into a chaotic struggle that left both officers injured and shaken. Witnesses described the scene as tense and unpredictable, with the rapid escalation catching everyone off guard. Despite the presence of other staff, the situation spiraled, and the male officer, in his bid to protect his colleague, became a target for several inmates. He sustained injuries that required him to be taken to a local hospital. Thankfully, initial reports indicated that he would be released after a brief period of observation, while the female officer received treatment and was sent home to recover. The incident sparked an immediate investigation, with authorities determined to uncover how such a violent breach of safety could occur. It raised serious concerns about security measures in place for correctional officers who work under constant risk in an environment where violence can erupt without warning. The courage of these officers, who face such threats daily, is a reminder of the high stakes in their line of work. Violence inside a Texas prison infirmary. In Texas, a shocking incident unfolded inside the infirmary of a prison known as the Jim Ferguson Unit. The setting, a place meant for medical care, turned into a scene of violence when a male inmate launched an unexpected attack on a female corrections officer. The video of the attack, which later surfaced on social media, has since stirred conversations about safety and accountability within the prison system. The incident occurred on a seemingly normal day, when the officer was performing her duties in the infirmary. In an instant, the calm environment was shattered. The inmate's actions were sudden and aggressive, leaving the officer struggling to defend herself. The situation escalated quickly until fellow staff intervened, helping to restrain the inmate and secure the area. Despite their efforts, the attack left the officer injured and deeply shaken by the ordeal.
Infirmary. The video has gone viral on Facebook. One woman said, "That's why I stayed in shape when I worked there back in the day."
The prison authorities have since initiated a thorough investigation into the matter. While details are still emerging, officials have expressed deep concern over the incident, highlighting the continuous challenges correctional staff face every day. With nearly 2,100 inmates housed in a sprawling complex and hundreds of employees working under high pressure, maintaining safety is an ever-present struggle. The attack in the infirmary not only raises questions about current security protocols, but also shines a light on the difficult conditions under which these dedicated workers operate. Tensions at the Water Street lockup. On a seemingly ordinary morning in St. John's, an unsettling event unfolded behind the walls of the Water Street lockup. In an incident that shocked staff and raised urgent questions about safety protocols, a 37-year-old inmate was charged after an altercation turned violent with two female correctional officers. The day began as usual, with officers going about their routine duties, only to have that routine shattered when the inmate, whose behavior had escalated, launched an unprovoked attack. One of the officers sustained injuries severe enough to need hospital care, while the other received less serious wounds that fortunately did not require immediate treatment. The disruption caused by the assault rippled through the facility, leaving colleagues and administrators grappling with concerns about what could lead to such extreme behavior from someone already under confinement. The incident has sparked discussions on how to better protect those working on the front lines of corrections and how to manage inmates whose behavior can suddenly spiral into violence. Many in the community are now left wondering what measures can be put in place to stop similar incidents in the future. Conversations among staff are filled with shock and the pressing need for renewed safety strategies. Amid the ensuing investigations and charges laid out by law enforcement, the focus remains on understanding how quickly things can go awry, even in a controlled environment. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. In the dim corridors of Crestwood Prison, Officer Miranda Scott walked her routine beat with cautious determination. Her steady steps echoed off cold, concrete walls as she kept a vigilant eye on every inmate. Suddenly, two black men, Rico and Jalen, stepped out from the shadows. Their eyes glinted with mischief and malice as they began to harass her, their taunts growing louder with each step closer. Miranda tried to maintain her composure, but the pressure was relentless. The tragic fate of female cops in male prisons isn't just a headline. It's our harsh reality, she thought, clinging to that grim truth as Rico shoved her arm and Jalen sneered with cruel intent. Her heart pounded while she attempted to ward off their unwelcome advances, feeling both vulnerable and determined to stand her ground. In that perilous moment, Miranda realized that every day on duty was a battle against not only crime, but also the darker side of human nature. Attack in a Quebec prison. In a correctional facility northeast of Montreal, the routine shift took a dramatic and painful turn one Sunday afternoon. At around 3:30 p.m., reports emerged that an inmate had launched a brutal attack on a correctional officer, leaving the victim with severe injuries. The officer, who was doing his duty amidst a normally tense environment, found himself caught off guard when a 39-year-old inmate turned violent, using a makeshift weapon that inflicted multiple blows. The shock of the assault quickly spread through the Sorrel Tracy Detention Center.
Rikers Island correction officers being attacked.
Staff members who witnessed the incident described a chaotic scene where attempts to subdue the attacker met with the victim's desperate struggle for survival. Although the officer was rushed to hospital and is now reported to be in stable yet critical condition, the severity of the injuries raises serious concerns about safety in such confined spaces. Many colleagues and union representatives are now calling for swift, more effective measures to protect those who risk their lives daily in these challenging environments. This troubling event has only added fuel to a growing fire of discontent among correctional staff. Over the past few weeks, multiple assaults have been reported, and voices within the community are demanding that decision-makers act decisively. The call for better security and support resonates loudly among officers who now find themselves increasingly vulnerable. Disturbing assault at Attica Correctional Facility. In a case that has left many both outraged and heartbroken, a female correctional officer was assaulted in a manner that shocked everyone at Attica Correctional Facility. On what began as a routine day, the atmosphere shifted dramatically when an inmate took advantage of a moment of vulnerability. As inmates were leaving a testing site within the prison chapel, this individual decided to commit an act that would forever alter the sense of security among the staff. Without warning, the inmate lunged forward and targeted the officer in a deeply personal and invasive way. In the ensuing struggle, the officer was not only physically attacked, but also subjected to actions that defy decency. Fellow officers quickly intervened, their immediate reactions underscoring the deep sense of duty and shock that this violation evoked. In the chaos, the situation escalated further. The inmate's resistance led to additional physical contact, and it took the combined efforts of staff and civilian instructors to finally subdue him. The impact of this attack has been felt far beyond the immediate injuries. The assaulted officer, who required medical attention and was treated at a local hospital, is now on leave as the investigation unfolds.
Then fought with officers who tried to restrain him. In another, the union says an inmate staged a suicide attempt.
The emotional toll on her and her colleagues is palpable, and the incident has stirred a call for a more robust response to prevent such dehumanizing behavior. Many now question the existing security protocols and the accountability measures in place to protect correctional staff who serve in environments where danger can be a daily reality. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.